The deeper I go in my own study, in my own healing, in my own work, the more I keep landing in the same place. Me. Not in a selfish, rugged individualism, egocentric, balls to the wall, it's all about me kind of way. But in a, this is actually the point kind of way. Like, this is where my attention needs to start. Every modality that I've been practicing, every book, every conversation, every lesson that's actually landed, at some point it stops being about the concept and starts being about the self, myself, yourself, the person trying to apply the thing. And I honestly think that that's what the universe or God or whatever your belief system calls it is trying to get us to see, that all of this work, all of the learning that we're doing, all of the growth that we're chasing, it's gotta still connect back to you. Everything's trying to get you to look at you so that you can be the best you. Not so you can isolate or so you can disconnect from people or the world, or not even so that you can find someone to complete you, but so you can actually access the fullness of what's available to you. Your power, your intuition, your discernment, your clarity, all of it lives in the relationship that you have with yourself first. So welcome back to the Deepening podcast. I'm Amber Cabral, and today we're going to talk about why your most important job is you and what actually happens when you start to finally accept that. So I've been saying for months and months that I've been in a tough season. I've closed a company, I've started a new company, I shaved my head, I went through a breakup, I've been sitting with myself in ways that I haven't ever sat with myself. And what I keep uncovering on this journey, because we're inching up on a year now, is that the closer I get to myself, the clearer everything becomes. Everything else gets clearer the closer I am to me. I don't mean for this to sound esoteric or blindly optimistic, but real talk, the more I stop looking for outside validation or counsel, and I spend time on really digesting and integrating the things that I have been studying and thinking about and learning about how the brain works and how the body responds, and really paying attention to what I'm physically sensing and how I'm internally processing and what I'm actively pursuing in terms of just understanding. It's if I immerse myself in things fully, it allows me to have access to a type of understanding that doesn't really feel like it's possible when you just study. It's one thing to understand something. It's a whole other thing to connect to it, to plug it into your life. I have been listening to my instincts. I've been being obedient to what my physical body rejects or wants to draw near. I have been paying attention to what makes my heart race or why I feel a wave of anxiety sometimes rush over me. And it leaves me with almost no capacity to worry, to stress, or to feel insecure. I am so focused on investigating and willfully and intentionally getting to know me. And it's making me a better community member, a better friend, a better lover, and much more. So at the top of this year, in the midst of, a very intentional journey of getting connected to myself, I also realized that I needed to change the Humaning Well framework. For those of you who are newer to the podcast, Humaning Well is built on 4 pillars. Those are health, wealth, relationships, and growth. And each of those pillars are kind of how I organize the work of building resilience and living with intention. And they come through these episodes. So you'll notice that each of the episodes that we do will touch one or more of those pillars. But recently, I added something really foundational for all of this to rest on, underneath it, and that's embodiment. And here's why. I realized that Humaning Well doesn't work if people are just following the instructions. It doesn't work if you're checking the box that you went to the gym or the other boxes that society tells you to do. You drank enough water today, right? You called your mother. You ate your apple and your beans and your, protein numbers, whatever. It doesn't work if you're mimicking language or applying formulas that aren't actually connected to you in your assignment on this earth. Without embodiment, Humaning Well becomes performative. You can do all the right things and still feel off. You can meditate every morning and still be disconnected from yourself. You can go to the gym and appear super fit, but be completely empty on the inside. You can journal about boundaries and still feel sick every time you try to set one. Embodiment is what changes that. There's actually neuroscience behind this, by the way. I do try to give y'all some science time to time. Researchers call this interoception. 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 It's your body's ability to sense its internal signals. So things like, being hungry or tired, or when things feel tense, or when things feel easy, or when you have discomfort. Interoception is how you know how something feels. And when something feels off, you feel that's interoception. And sometimes you get that feeling even before your brain can articulate why. That's what that interoception is. It's how your gut tells you, this ain't right, even if everything kind of looks fine on paper. When your interoceptive awareness is strong, you have access to information that your thinking mind doesn't have access to. So you can feel misalignment. You can sense when you're overriding yourself. You can catch patterns before they actually get attached to you. And it becomes less acceptable for you to betray yourself literally for any reason, because you can see it, you can feel it, and you can't dishonor that anymore because you're like, yo, my body is not good with that. But when you're disconnected from your body, when you've spent years and years ignoring your signals, pushing through, numbing out, that interoception goes quiet. And then you're left making decisions from your head mostly. You ever have that feeling where you're like, man, how do I feel about that? What does my gut say? And you almost can't get it. It's because you're disconnected. And so you're wondering why you keep ending up in places that don't quite feel like you. And also, you don't even know how to articulate what does feel like you. Or you do what people around you tell you to do, or worse, what the internet tells you to do, because you just don't have that instinct. You have an inability to access what you actually desire. So you either pretend not to have desire, or you pick from what's presented to you and hope that what someone else sees for your life is actually what's right for you. So a couple years ago, I was having a discussion with a man about sexual fantasies, and I kept saying, I don't think I have any. I don't think that's a thing that I do. I don't think I do that. And he pressed, and I searched my mind, and nothing really came up. It was just blanks. And I remember the conversation very vividly because he made me feel like it was weird, or I was withholding something from him, and I just couldn't access that. Well, fast forward to a few weeks ago in a completely separate conversation with an entirely different person. The topic of sexual fantasies came up, and mine just rattled out of my mouth without me even realizing it. I was shocked at myself. I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know that was in there. I didn't even know. But, I know what it is now because I'm so connected to myself that there's very little about me that's still suppressed or separate from me. I'm literally connected. I wasn't connected enough then to be fantasy. I have things to do. I have stuff to worry about. I am living in hypervigilance. And now that I'm not doing that, I can access something of that nature. Embodiment is your ability to notice what feels right, versus what feels forced. It's your ability to hear what your body is signaling, not just what your brain is telling you. It's your ability to distinguish intuition from anxiety. It's your ability to interrupt patterns in real time and not just reflect on them after it happens, which we still need to do that because sometimes things will still happen. But embodiment to me is what gives you a vote in your own wellness. Without it, you're just following someone else's script. And real talk, the script might not fit you. It might not be for you. And so I want to make a distinction that I think is really important. Understanding lives in your head. Integrating, making it come to life, lives in your body. That's where that interoception comes from. That's where embodiment happens. You can understand boundaries intellectually and still literally not have the capacity to set one. You can know you're burned out and still literally override every physical signal that your body is giving you and keep burning yourself out. You can study healing for years, consume all the content, know all the data points, listen to all the podcasts, and still be completely disconnected from your own sensation. It's such a complicated thing to explain because only you know it's happening. Everyone looking at you and listening at you is going to believe what you're showing them. But in the inside if it's real or not. And for me, there was a window of time where I was like, yeah, I don't know if I feel enough. right? It was accumulation of information. And I say this with compassion because like I'm sharing with you, I've been there. Okay. I've even told you what it looked like. I would go to Reiki, I would go to acupuncture, and I was just doing the work physically, but I was checked out mentally. I wasn't actually there. I was doing the mindfulness without being mindful. And if the body isn't involved, honestly, the work just stays theoretical and you really aren't getting what benefits are available to you. I've also learned that you can really tell the difference between someone who has information and someone who has integrated it. When someone hasn't done the self-facing work, they can rattle off the language, they can share concepts. It sounds amazing, but it's not like lived. It's not palpable, right? When someone has done the work and they've integrated it, they've embodied it, they've lived it, those interoceptors are popping, okay? They translate those ideas that other folks will talk about through their own experience. They can talk about, this is what happened to me. They can give you examples and you can feel the difference, right? You can literally feel it. Embodiment is what turns the concepts into wisdom. Okay. And integration is what happens when you take that stuff that you've learned and you plug it into your actual life so you have a chance to feel it and do the embodiment part. When you don't, you just know something is true. You just don't really feel that it's true, right? If that makes sense. So I always kind of think about it like, think about the things that people spend years chasing in their lives. Career, money, relationships, where they want to live, purpose. And we like agonize over the decisions. We make pros and cons lists. We ask everyone we know for advice. We scroll for answers. We do all this research. We wait for clarity, blah, blah, blah. But those decisions, actually, if you spend the time getting to know yourself, they get exponentially easier. It's like something in your instinct, in your body, in your gut that gets you there. Okay. When you know what you value, you know what to prioritize, you know what drains you, you know what to avoid. You have a good sense of when your body is telling you no to something, how to stop overriding it. I really think that a lot of us are trying to design our lives without realizing that we don't even have a good understanding of the person who has to live the life, even though we're literally that person. And so you're skipping over yourself, and looking at yourself isn't easy. It requires honesty and grace and gentleness. It requires you to not let yourself off the hook. It requires you to slow down. And most of us are really addicted to moving very quickly instead of sitting with discomfort and questioning things that feel, like yuck, and asking ourselves like why and what we can do about it. And maybe the hardest part about all of this is that like once you really see yourself clearly, you kind of can't unknow it. And you realize you've been avoiding things. And, it's just like this huge mirror pops up. And once you get in the habit of feeling and sensing misalignment and how you're dishonoring yourself or pretending like something matters to you that doesn't, you just can't anymore. You just can't. And that's scary. Looking at yourself removes the option of pretending that nothing needs to change. And I do understand why people avoid it. I avoided it, both intentionally and not. I just now see that the cost of not looking at myself is higher and low key. The better I know me, the easier some of this gets. And I also realized that for the discomfort that I'm suffering now, it's not as though I wasn't uncomfortable then. It was just slower. It was showing up in like exhaustion or resentment or like being in relationships that don't work or having financial frustration or doing work that I really hated or a life that looks good, but like doesn't quite feel as good as it looks. And now I don't really have any of that because I'm honest with myself up front. Right. And so the bottom line I think that I'm trying to get to is that like your biggest and most important job is you. Period. It's your most important job. Figuring you out is one of the best gifts you can give yourself, your loved ones, your family, your friends, everybody. Your job is not to just contribute. It's not to just produce. It's not to just succeed or achieve or check the boxes or appear to be perfect. Your most important job is to know you and know how to go where that leads you. To listen to yourself, to integrate what you're learning, not just consume it, to make choices that your body and your mind and your values can actually sustain. It makes you better at everything. It doesn't make it easier necessarily, but you do get better. And that even shows up in the way that you are in relationship and in community with others. So if you're lonely, you want better community, you're feeling disconnected, your job is you. Because when you do that, everything else becomes clearer. Your decisions become clearer. Your relationships become clearer. Your contribution becomes cleaner because it's coming from someone who actually is in connection with themselves and can be able to connect to what people need. The world doesn't need more people just following the formulas and checking the boxes. It needs people who know themselves so that you can show up with enough discernment, presence, and alignment that actually the kinds of movements that we need in the year of 2026 can actually take place. But that requires us to look at ourselves like deeply. So I hope this episode doesn't come across as like, I don't know, too like ethereal or whimsical. I'm actively in the process of learning this and learning how to talk about it as I'm actively living it. And it's kind of wild to describe a thing that you are living but have never really talked a lot about before. But I do recognize its importance, and I see massive change in my own life and want to make sure that I can communicate that. So before I close, I'm going to give you some reflection questions to sit with. The first one is, what does my body consistently react to that I keep explaining away? You know, what's that thing that keeps popping up, but I keep going, it could be something simple like, you're forcing yourself to live in a city and you really want to live where there's more quiet, right? Where am I following a version of my life that looks good but doesn't feel true? Where does it look nice to everybody else, but maybe for you it's like, not quite? Where am I settling for something that feels close to what I want but still isn't quite right? Because that's another way that we can approach this. What do I understand intellectually that I haven't allowed to change how I live? This is a big one. Because a lot of us understand stuff intellectually. The entire internet understands ADHD, okay? But somehow it is still perpetually a problem, right? And the thing I want you to keep in mind is this isn't about perfection. It's about practice and being present in that practice so that you can build the relationship with yourself so that you can have better relationships with others, and the choices that you make will better reflect who you actually are instead of who you think you should be. Because your most important job is you. And that's not selfish. It's the foundation that everything else gets built on. Okay. So that's the episode. If this one resonated with you, please share. I'm really trying to get my listener numbers up and I don't know what else to do right now besides ask y'all. So if you think someone needs the permission to prioritize themselves, please pass this episode along. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please rate the show 5 stars. It helps people find these conversations who are actually in need of them. And otherwise, take care of yourself, and I'll see you next week.